as much performer as I was a calf roper. I can remember dragging behind this calf and doing all this stuff, and like it was just like big old light bulbs in my eyes. I couldn't even really tell what I was doing. I just, you know, my body was wanting to shut down. It said, "You lose."
Have you ever seen a more outstanding performance by any one cowboy?
The good old days right there.
Hi, I'm Jeff Metters. Welcome to Bullseye. I'm a firm believer that to win a PRCA World Championship, you have to be comfortable at the Thomas and Mack Center. It's something that you just can't fake. In my tenure, I've seen a lot of cowboys dominate the regular season, but fail to put the pieces together in Las Vegas. Very few are immune to the pressure cooker that is the National Finals Rodeo. But on that short list, and maybe at the top, is tie-down roper Cody Ohl. In 20 trips to the NFR, he won 52 go-arounds. 52! And he did it against some of the fastest tie-down ropers in PRCA history. In part one of our Bullseye with Cody Ohl, we'll talk about the mindset and the drive that made him one of, if not the greatest, tie-down roper of all time.
Sitting around here in the evening and you close your eyes and you think about Thomas and Mack Center, I gotta think those are just all really good thoughts.
They're the greatest thoughts, you know, and it's, you know, retirement was the hardest thing ever on me. It still is, you know, just messing with the pig and strings, you guys setting up cameras, just feels like we're at the Thomas and Mack for me, you know. So that place was like home after, it seemed like once I got to rolling in '97, it was just, you know, mine to lose every time, you know. So that place will always, you know, hold a special spot in my heart.
To me, you just seemed like you were roping in your backyard. You backed in the box of Thomas and Mack and it was like, I'm pretty carefree and I'm just gonna go kill it.
You know, just growing up where I grew up, every setup was just like the Thomas and Mack, you know, like watching these old NFRs right now, watching Joe Beaver ropes, you know, just two swings and it was not a gamble shot to him or I, you know what I mean? Like he's doing it in the 80s, you know, just like we do it now. And, you know, I got a lot of it from watching him out there at Vegas, but, you know, I grew up doing the same shot, you know, every day, and that's all the same rodeos he went to as a kid, too. So, I mean, we're naturally going to be more, you know, above a lot of the guys out there because that's our throw, and that's why I take it every time. I know that's the best throw because the calves are always moving away from you and not checking off, wondering which way they're going to duck, you know, once they get to the halfway mark.
It's always fun too because it's not like if you were off the pace or whatever, you're gonna wait to make your move. It's like round one. I mean, you won so many round ones.
You know, like my dad always told me, he said, you know, we go these big ropings, you know, you don't want to cost yourself. You're there to win. It's an 8-header. You're there to win an average. That's what you entered it for, you know. But the first 2 rounds, and at Vegas, it's the first 3 rounds, you know, everybody wants to talk about, you know, the calves doing this or doing that. I never went about it that way, and I've only broke the barrier like 3 times and, you know, 199 runs. So I still went at it the same. Did I see like an inch or 2 more than I'd have seen in the 4th round? Yeah, I did, but still did my deal. I come off the corner when I nodded, and I knew that was the best throw on those calves at that point.
52 go-around wins at the NFR. Does that, I mean, I'm not sure how you get there. I'm not sure how anybody sets out and wins that many rounds. That's an astronomical number in one event.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it was crazy because when you get to 20, get to 30, get to 40, you know, it's like, hey, you know, you got Billy Headbuyer still rodeoing, you know, and watching him win. It wasn't nothing for him to win 5 rounds, you know, every year. And so you're thinking, hey, no way you can catch up, you know. So then later in my career, I started like I'd knock off 3 or 4 in a row, you know, and then, or I'd get it started off strong, I'd get a couple, and then to me, sometimes I get caught up in just winning the round versus thinking about a gold buckle. I mean, $18,000 a night, I mean, I'm not going to be very safe.
It's gone up now. It's almost about 30.
I honestly don't know how I'd handle it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't change anything. You know, I'm still, you know, try to maintain your average position out there. But man, with $30,000, I'm coming with the fastball for sure.
Coming up, pressure either makes diamonds or it bursts pipes. And it's pretty easy to see what it does to Cody Ohl.
I was as much performer as I was a calf roper. I'm giving them their money's worth, every time I get a chance to nod for 18,000.
Bullseye with Jeff Metters is presented by Cinch. Lead, don't follow.
You're telling me you won more round 10s than round 1s. But what's the mindset in round number 10? Sometimes you're roping for a world championship, sometimes you're trying to win the go-around.
Round 10 is just, especially when they moved it to Saturday night, that's the most people.
People don't remember that anymore.
No, and
it used to be Sunday afternoon, and a sleepy Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I've been in bed for 2 hours, or maybe not, it just depends how the week's been, but, Saturday night is, it's what I lived for my whole career. I said, have you ever heard George Strait, sing at 8 in the morning? I bet it's not very good, I was the same way. I was pretty much as much performer as I was a calf roper, like I'm laying in my room and, I get the call, what calf I got. And, it's not only am I preparing myself to be the very best that night against the greatest guys in the world, but I'm planning what I'm going to do after I do make that run on that calf, like the year I put a Sharpie in my back pocket in 2006, and back to your deal, like nothing changed in 2006. I just was on a roll. Earlier that summer I placed at 23 rodeos in a row, which in the timed events that's unheard of, and I never backed off in round 10. I had to lead in the average and just I actually split the round with Scott Cormos that night, 7-6, but it was to the point I already had this plan to sign my hat and, throw it to the crowd, whatever. But so really, there was no backing up for me. I was going at it, had the world championship won. So, Saturday night, I'm coming with it. I'm giving the guys and gals and families, whatever, I'm giving them their money's worth, every time I get a chance to nod for 18,000.
Where are all those go-round buckles?
It wasn't nothing. Like back in the day, it was, I had guys helping me. I had different family coming in, 3 or 4 different sets at a time. I just, for how much they really meant to me, for me to get all that limelight from what they've done for me to get me to that point, it wasn't nothing. I'd hand a buckle over in a heartbeat. So like, after say 5 or 6 years, I might have had only about 5 of them left. And then, when my career come close to an end, and went through divorce and times got tough, and so it wasn't nothing to sell 2 or 3 of them and one little old message on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and at times, man, it's like Blake will say sometimes, Dad, where's this buckle? I said, buddy, you remember that meal? That buckle helped pay for that, and there's no shame in that. Them buckles, they really, what are they? You know what I mean? It's when times got tough, they come in, played a big role,
Yeah, and it's one of these, and I would love to see rodeo when these guys, those guys retire, that, similar to some of those other athletes in NFL and NBA, you never see a poor day, but our sport's that's just not how it is.
In rodeo, it's pretty much you quit. Because you couldn't afford to go anymore. I wasn't going to just to go, and I wasn't that guy that was going to end up 16th. If I didn't feel like I was going to have a chance to win a world championship, I'd have hung it up before that, but when it's time, it's pretty much just walk away. There's not anything other than what you put back and invested, and, just hope you did.
Still to come, it's one of the greatest rivalries ever in pro rodeo, Cody versus Fred. We'll get Cody's thoughts on how it was the driving force of his career.
He mentally had most of the guys beat before we even competed.
Cody Ohl.
Roped 1 in 6.5, tying the arena record. What was that night like?
That was unreal. I mean, I had the calf that when I'm on my way over there, Paul Zanardi said, "Hey, you got the one. You got calf 38." And I just told him earlier, I said, "Don't call me unless I have 38." So he said, "You got him." So, you know, I couldn't win second with him behind me. You know, I knew he was good, but he wasn't what I had. You know, there was no chance of him being 6'4" on that calf. You know, so I knew if I put a exclamation point on it right then when I went, you know, that was my only chance to upset him.
That's still in the record books there too. Yeah.
Yeah, Trevor matched it, but you know, they've roped a lot, you know, lighter into the cattle nowadays, and I thought for sure somebody would have gotten it 2 or 3 times, but we're still in there.
Do you think you win as much as you win if you don't have a Fred Whitfield that kind of drives you and pushes you and gave you a reason to get out of bed in the morning and stay focused?
Not even maybe. You know, when I got with him, it was unreal. I mean, like, I know for sure at times that guy would have honestly took a bullet for me. I really feel like that. You know, it's like rodeoing with a big brother for a long time, but he mentally had most of the guys beat before we even competed. You know, I can remember saddling our horses up, and he might be a decent friend of ours, you know, and they're like, "Hey, Fred," like, so just nod the head to speak.
Yeah.
And just so focused, just headed to the arena. Like, I know today that we beat half the field everywhere we went because they were just, it played games with him. I mean, he wasn't being arrogant, he wasn't anything. He was so focused, and it bled into me. And then once we got to, you know, just going to all these rodeos, there's so many times we win first and second back to back. He'd win first one night, and I'd win, you know, just rodeo after rodeo after rodeo. It was it's unreal. I mean, neither one of us, I don't think, would be as good as when we retired and done all the things we did without each other. I mean, I honestly feel that.
I mean, for a decade or so, you guys are the only ones that won world championships.
Yeah. And
is it your year or is it Fred's year?
Yeah, and what's cool about it is half of those, we're in the same rig all year long from day one till the end.
How much gratification did you get when the dust settled at the NFR and you're the guy that won the gold buckle and you beat Fred?
I mean, I just know I beat the very best competitor of all times. You know, like, that guy he changed it after Joe B, you know, and he made it faster, and he made it, you know, like I said, the attitude and the, you know, expecting. When he walked up, you weren't expecting to beat him. And if you did, you did something.
How bad did it suck when the dust settled and he was the guy that won?
It was hard. I mean, and the same with him, you know, but same deal. You know, you kind of go your different ways after that day for a couple of days, and we get home and he has a party for winning the world, I'm there. I have a party for winning the world, he's there. You know, we had such a cool, I mean, it'll never be matched what we went through in those 10 years. It was awesome.
What did winning the all-around mean to you?
It was the greatest accomplishment. You know, I just wish I'd have won it when my dad was still alive. You know, it just, I missed it in '99. You know, Fred won it. I had a little heck in the 10th round to trump him for 2 world championships right there, you know, but it, you know, just wasn't in the books. You know, I lost by a couple $1,000, and then 2000, I lost my dad, and then, you know, I made the finals, but it wasn't the same. You know, I lost my number 1 cheerleader. You know what I mean? The guy that taught me everything I know. And when 2001 come around, I was just dialed into the max. Well, I got a nice deer roping horse, had a nice team roping horse, and had me a couple of good partners.
Let's go through round 9 and tie down roping. What happened?
Just like you talked about, it's Fred Whitfield, Cody Ohl show, you know, and sure, he struggled in a couple rounds, and he come back in the 9th round and blasted one. I think he was 7-4, 7-5. I had the world championship already won, backed in there, and had a little trouble in the box. I don't like to stay in there very long. And Kev kept kind of fighting and shooting, and Kev was decent, so I was like, you know, I'm going for first. I'm going to, you know, same thing he'd have done, you know, if I'm winning the round. He's going to try to beat me. and I took a throw that I would have taken 20 more times in a row, but just being in that box longer, I just kind of felt like I kind of got my loop behind me a little more, and then when I come with it, I kind of had to try to push it a little bit instead of staying over the front rope, and I missed that sucker, and I was winning the average and everything at the time. And when I pulled that second rope, I had to, it kind of bobbled just a little, so I glanced down at it as I'm running wide open, and naturally you want the calves to go to the right, so I even steered over here pretty good ways, and the calf just didn't take it. He went in between the wall and me to the left. So it made it for a pretty hard shot. So I went ahead and took it because I had a 10-second lead in average. So if, I could still be 17 or 18 on his calf, I'm still in good shape, with one to go. And I rope him, and my curl comes around and figure eight's the back leg. So I make that corner, and I just lift up on it like that just to keep the slack tight and some pressure on it. So at least it pulls up on the back leg, And so when I come down, I got off a little earlier than I probably should, but what caused me to come down is that rope come tight as I'm coming down, and then my leg hits straight, and that extra weight from the calf, and my weight and the momentum, when that sucker hit the ground, it just, so I go to get up, and it won't even work, like it's nothing there, so your mind's going 90 to nothing. I get down there, and the calf is actually laying flat on the ground. So the best thing for me to do in my predicament would have been just to lay on him, cut the rope, and then let him up and flank him again. But like I said, my mind was shot, so I'm 2 foot behind him. I cut the rope, and I leave myself about a foot of rope to hold on to. So he jerks me down. I can remember dragging behind this calf and doing all this stuff, and like I was almost blacked out. It was just like big old light bulbs in my eyes. I couldn't even really tell what I was doing. I just, my body was wanting to shut down, and it said, you lose, or you lost, you know what I mean? Like it's the craziest feeling I ever went through. And the calf was decent size, and as he's moving, I flank him just with off of my left leg, and don't even use my my power leg, the flank. It's just dragging back here, and I get him down, and then I step across him and get him tied. But as soon as that adrenaline, when I threw my hands up, I just felt like I just passed out, So it was, like I said, I think it was a great story. I get as much compliments off of that as I ever did, breaking a record or doing anything else. So. But I know, in my heart, and I know it was the year that cost me, 5 or 6 more championships, more all-arounds. It got me off track to at the top of my career, like I'm an all-around world champion. I'm at the very, very top, and then I'm right at the very bottom.
When we come back, we'll take a stroll through downtown Hico. Cody has a lot in common with a Wild West legend.
I wouldn't match anybody but world champions on the biggest stages, so to prepare for that was just like me preparing for the National Finals Rodeo.
Bullseye with Jeff Metters is presented by Cinch. Lead, don't follow. And brought to you by Cavenders. This is how we live. And Hui, the Western Action Sports brand.
Cavenders Q&A, so I'm just going to ask you quick questions and simple answers. Indiana Jones or Star Wars, which side of the fence are you on?
Yeah, not much on either one of them movies. I don't get into that, but I guess Star Wars.
Greatest Western of all time?
I love some Tombstone. I don't get into, like I said, if it's daylight outside and the sun's out, I'm outside doing what makes me better.
As an owner, would you rather win the Kentucky Derby or the ABBI Futurity?
As the owner and the trainer, I would have to. The bull deal it's crazy. The hours, they're both awesome, but the love for the bulls for me would be, I'd win that one.
If you're getting away, are you going to the beach or going to the mountains?
I'm going to the beach.
Dinner, would you steak or sushi?
It's toss up nowadays. Me and my daughter, we like to sneak off and eat our sushi, but you can't beat the steak, buddy. It's what's for dinner.
Or cheesy.
You look at those match ropings. I think that's kind of a lot of people outside of the roping world don't know a whole lot about them, but it's kind of high pressure, high dollar. Is that fun? Because you kind of thrive on the pressure side of it.
I do, because it's like I said, it's head to head, and you're, in my day, I wouldn't match anybody but world champions on the biggest stages, So to prepare for that was just like me preparing for the National Finals Rodeo, and then with that being in late October, if I was tuned up to the max for that and had success and beat Fred Whitfield, it seemed like it carried into the National Finals Rodeo as well.
Cracks me up that the Billy the Kid Museum is here, because you're kind of it's kind of like your style now and how you rope.
It is, as you read into it, we do a lot of things the same.
Complete gunslinger.
Complete.
On our next Bullseye with Cody Ohl, we'll talk about life after rodeo. He would face a challenge that would change his perspective and his life forever. Let's just call it the greatest comeback of his career. I'm Jeff Metters. Thanks for watching.
Life was almost over like that, and still didn't know, if I live, what am I going to do? I can't even walk. Don't think I'm ever even going to walk again. I don't want $100,000 horse. I want every one of these to have a chance at that. So 7 days a week around here we roll.